Adapted from the archaic translation by Mrs. Rhys Davids. Sundari, daughter of a rich Brahmin Sujata, of Savatthi. She too, having made her resolve under former Buddhas, and accumulating good karma of age-enduring efficacy in many rebirths, was reborn 31 eons ago, when Vesali was Buddha, in a clansman's family. One day she served alms to the master, and worshipped him, and he perceived her believing heart, and thanked her. After being reborn in heaven and other happy rebirths, her understanding having come to maturity, she was, in this Buddha age, was reborn at Benares as the daughter of Sujata, a Brahmin. Because of her perfect form they called her Sundari. When she grew up, her younger brother died. Her father, overcome by grief, and going to and fro, met the Theri Vasitthi. When she asked him what afflicted him, he answered as in the first 2 verses. Wishing to allay his grief, she spoke the next 2 verses, and told him of her own griefless state. The Brahmin asked her, "How, lady, did you become free from grief?" The Theri told him of the 3 jewels, the refuges. "Where," he asked, "is the master?" "He is now at Mithila." So the Brahmin drove in his carriage to Mithila and tried to obtain audience of the master. To him the master taught the Dhamma. And he believed, and entered the order, after strenuous effort in practicing insight meditation, attained arahantship on the 3rd day. But the charioteer drove his chariot back to Benares, and told the Brahmini what had taken place. When Sundari heard of it, she asked her mother, saying, "Mother, I too would leave the world." The mother said, "All the wealth in this house belongs to you. You are the heiress of this family. Take up your heritage and enjoy it. Go not forth." But Sundari said, "Wealth is no use to me. Mother, I would leave the world." And, bringing the mother to consent, she abandoned her great possessions like so much spittle, and entered the order. And becoming student and striving in insight meditation because of the capability in her and the maturity of her knowledge, she attained arahantship, with thorough grasp of the Dhamma in form and meaning. Dwelling from that time on in the ease of fruition and the bliss of Nibbana, she thought, "I will utter a lion's roar before the master." And asking permission of her teacher, she left Benares, accompanied by a great following of bhikkhunis, and in due course came to Savatthi, paid respects to the master, and stood on one side. Welcomed by him, she declared her Anna by telling her relation to him as the daughter of his mouth, and so on. After that all her relatives, beginning with her mother, and their attendants, renounced the world. She, looking back at her attainment, and using her father's utterances in her own hymn, was elated and said as follows. Brahmin Sujata. Lady of the Brahmins, you too in the past. You know it was your little babe's death robbed and preyed upon. And you all night, all day, made your bitter wail. Vasitthi, say. How come, that today you, who has lost so many, was it 7? All your sons. No more mourn and weep so bitterly? Theri Vasitthi. No, Brahmin, many hundreds of our babes, and of our relatives many hundred more, have we in all the ages past and gone seen preyed upon by death, both you and I. But I have learned how from both birth and death a way there is to escape. For that reason no more I mourn, nor weep, nor make my bitter wail. Brahmin Sujata. Wondrous in truth, Vasitthi, are the words you speak. Whose the doctrine you have learnt? From where your authority for speech like this? Theri Vasitthi. It is he, the awakened one, the Buddha, he who late, hard by the town of Mithila, did teach the Dhamma, Brahmin, by which all that has life may put off every suffering. When I, O Brahmin, when I heard the Arahant reveal the doctrine of the non-substrate, at once the teaching I understood. and all my mother grief fell off from me. Brahmin Sujata. Then I too straight will go to Mithila. If by luck the exalted Buddha may me, even me, release from every suffering. The Brahmin went. He saw the awakened one. Though emancipated, him in whom no base factor is found for rebirth, and from him the seer, him who has passed beyond all suffering. He heard the Dhamma, the truth of suffering, and how suffering comes, and how suffering may be overcome. Even by the Aryan, the eightfold path that leads to the removal of all suffering. At once he came to know the righteous path of Dhamma. He renounced the world, he chose the homeless ascetic life. On the third night in meditation with rapt attention, Sujata touched and won all the threefold understanding. Brahmin Sujata. Come, charioteer, now drive this chariot home. Wish your good mistress health, the Brahmini. And say, the Brahmin has renounced the world. On the third night of meditation in rapt attention, Sujata touched and won all the threefold understanding. And so the driver took the car and purse of money home, and wished his mistress health. And said, the Brahmin has renounced the world. On the third night of meditation in rapt attention, Sujata touched and won all the threefold understanding. Sundari's mother. For this that you have heard, O charioteer, and tells that the Brahmin has attained the threefold wisdom, no half gift give I you. Take you the chariot, take the horses both, and take 1,000 pieces for your pains. Charioteer. Let them remain your own, O Brahmini. Horses and chariot and the 1,000 coins. For I, too, have a mind to leave the world, to go near to him of highest wisdom. Sundari's mother. But you, my Sundari, now that your father has gone forth, leaving his home, renouncing all his great estate, cattle and horses, elephants, jewels and rings, you at least come to your own. You are the heir of this your family. Do you enjoy your wealth? Sundari to her mother. Cattle and horses, elephants, jewels and rings. All that goes to make this fair and broad estate, has he put far from him, my father dear, and renounced the world, in sorrow for his son. I, too, in sorrow for my brother's death. I have a mind like him to leave the world. Sundari's mother. May this, then, your intention, Sundari, may your resolve, be crowned with success. The food from hand to mouth, gleaned here and there, the patchwork robe, these things accomplished, will purify in other afterworld whatever has poisoned life for you in this. Sundari to her teacher Theri. I've trained me, lady, in the threefold course. Clear shines for me the eye celestial. I know the how and when I came to be. Down the long past, and where it was I lived. To you I owe it, O you noble friend. You loveliest of the Theri from the order. That I have gotten now, the threefold wisdom. And that the Buddha's discipline is fulfilled. Give to me, lady, your consent, for I would go to Savatthi, so that I may utter my lion's roar in presence of the Buddha, the supreme saint. Teacher Theri to Sundari. See, Sundari, the master fair in hue. His appearance is as fine gold, clear and bright. Him who is all enlightened, Buddha, best. Tamer of untamed, never tasting fear. And see, O Master, Sundari, who comes to tell you of enlightenment one, and of the right no more to he reborn. Who has herself from passion freed, unyoked from bondage, loosened from the world. Accomplished now is the appointed work, and all desires that intoxicated are cleansed away. Sundari to Buddha. From Benares I am come to you. I, Sundari, your pupil, at your feet. O mighty hero, See me worship here. You are Buddha. You are Master. And your daughter am I, issue of your mouth. You very Brahmin. Even of your word. Accomplished now is my appointed task. And all desires that intoxicated me are cleansed away. Buddha. Welcome to you, you gracious lady. From there. For you it was but a little way to come. For so they come who, victors over self, are glad to worship at the Master's feet. Who also have themselves from passion freed. Unyoked from bondage, loosened from the world. Who have accomplished what was to be done. And all desires that intoxicated have cleansed away. Therigatha. Adapted from the archaic translation by Mrs. Rhys Davids. Subha of Rajagaha. She. 2. Having made her resolve under former Buddhas. And accumulating good karma of age-enduring efficacy in many rebirths. So that she had progressively planted the root of good and accumulated the conditions of enlightenment, was, in this Buddha era, reborn at Rajagaha as the daughter of a certain goldsmith. From the beauty of her person she was called Subha. Come to years of discretion, she went one day, while the master was at Rajagaha, and having faith in him she paid respects, seating herself on one side. The master, seeing the maturity of her moral faculties, and in accordance with her wish, taught her the Dhamma enshrined in the Four Truths. She was by that established in the fruition of stream entry. Later she realized the disadvantages of domestic life, and entered the order under the great Pajapati the Gautami, foster mother and the sister and co-wife of the Buddha's departed mother, and head of nuns, devoting herself to the higher paths. From time to time her relations invited her to return to the world, urging about its charms. When they came one day, to them thus, she teaches the danger in house life and in the world, preaching the Dhamma in the 24 verses below, and then they left cured of their desire. She then strove in insight meditation, purifying her faculties, till at length she won arahantship. As arahant she spoke thus. A girl I, all clad in white, once heard the Dhamma, and heard eagerly, earnestly. So in me rose discernment of the truths. Because of that all worldly pleasures irked me much. For I could see the perils that beset this reborn compound, personality. And to renounce it was my sole desire. So I forsook my world, my relatives all, my slaves, my hirelings, and my villages, and the rich fields and meadows spread around, things fair and making for the joy of life. All these I left, turning my back upon big estate, and tried to obtain the ordination. Improper it be now that I, who in full faith renounced that world, who well discern the truth, who, laying down what gold and silver bring, cherish no worldly wishes whatsoever, should, all undoing, come to you again. Silver and gold avail not to awakened nor to saints, unsuitable for sacred lives. They are not Aryan, not noble, wealth, by which greed is aroused and lewdness, infatuation and all fleshly lusts, from where comes fear for loss and many a care. Here is no ground for lasting firmness. Here men, heedless and maddened with desires, corrupt in mind, by one another led and hindered, strive in general enmity, death, bonds, and torture, ruin, grief, and woe await the slaves of sense, and dreadful doom. Why with this, my kinsmen, no, my foes? Why yoke me in your minds with sense desires? Know me as one who saw, and therefore fled the perils rising from the life of sense. Not gold nor money can avail to clean the poison of the deadly asavas. Ruthless and murderous are sense desires, like cruel spear and prison bonds. Why with this, my relatives, no? Why yoke me in your minds with sense desires? Know me as her who fled the life of sense, having shaven her hair, wrapped in her yellow robe. The food from hand to mouth, gleaned here and there. The patchwork robe, these things are suitable for me. The basis of the homeless ascetic life. Great sages remove all desires of sense. Whether they be in heaven or on earth. At peace they dwell, for they freeholders are. For they have one unfluctuating bliss. Never let me follow after worldly lusts, in which no refuge is. For they are foes, and murderers, and cruel blazing fires. Oh! But a demon is here, the haunt of dread and fear of death, a thorny brake. A greedy mouth it is, a path impassable. Mouth of a pit in which we lose our wits. A horrid shape of doom impending, such are worldly lusts. Uplifted heads of snakes. In that they that be fools find their delight. The blinded, general, average, sensual man. For all the many people, who thus remain unillumined, ignorant in the marsh of worldly lusts, heed not that which can limit birth and death. Because of worldly lusts mankind is drawn by woeful way to many a direful doom, where every step does work its penalty. Breeders of enmity are worldly lusts, engendering remorse and vicious taints. Flesh baits, to bind us to the world and death, leading to madness, to hysteria, to ferment of the mind, are worldly lusts. These are traps Mara laid to ruin men. Endless the direful fruit of worldly lusts, surcharged with poison, sowing many ills. Scanty and brief its sweetness, stirring strife, and withering the brightness of our days. For me who thus have chosen, never will I into the world's disasters come again. For in Nibbana is my joy always. So, fighting and winning from worldly lusts, wait in hope for the cool blessedness, remaining earnest in effort, till all binding fetters are removed. This is the way that leads beyond grief, past all that does defile, even the Aryan eightfold path, straight, that we follow where the saints have crossed. See now this Subha, standing on the Dhamma, daughter of a goldsmith. Look! She has attained to utter calm, remains in rapture of meditation beneath the tree. Today, the 8th that is since she went forth, in faith, and radiant in the teaching's light. By Upalavana instructed, lo! Thrice wise is she and conqueror over death. Freed woman she, discharged is all her debt. A bhikkhuni, trained in the higher sense. All broken are the bonds, her task is done. And the worldly desires that poisoned her are cleansed. To her came Sakka, and with his band of gods, in all their glory, worshipping Subha, daughter of a goldsmith, and the Lord of all. When, on the 8th day after her ordination, she won arahantship, attaining fruition, seated beneath a tree, the Bhagwan uttered verses in her praises, pointing her out to the monks that Sakka saw all this with divine sight. Then he and the devas of Tavantas heaven came down with faith and worshipped them with folded hands. Then the last verse was spoken.